Hara found Gideon in her room working on something. She said, "You know you have a perfectly good room of your own." Gideon didn't look up from his equations. "I like yours better." She closed the door behind her as she entered the room. She sat on the bed as he was on the only chair in the room. She crossed her legs and watched him for a while. "The Roshbarkers won't bother us anymore." Angel hopped onto her lap. Her wing was already fixed and better than ever. Angel had gotten very affectionate after the repair and Hara let her cuddle in her lap. Gideon was very perceptive as he wasn't fooled by her prevarication. "I'm not going back." Hara sighed. "Why not? You don't have to worry about being kidnapped anymore." There went that hope, though she knew her heart wasn't really into getting rid of him. "Because you are in my collection." His answer annoyed her. She shook her head. "Not yet." Gideon looked up at her, his eyes flashing with his emotions. "I think I am growing on you. So I believe I will stick around until you can't think of me being anywhere else." Hara wrinkled her nose. He might be right, and there was no way to make him stay in his own home in any case. He had wings and could follow her anywhere. She pulled her knees up to her chin. "My father is not someone you want to add to your collection, Gideon. He is a con man and he uses people. Especially people he thinks are family." Gideon turned around and rested his arm on his leg. "I am aware of your father's flaws. I still don't think that will change my mind." Her thoughts were confused. She wasn't sure if she wanted him to be so stubborn or not. He tilted his head and studied her for a while before he said, "Where I come from we are hatched. My mother and father were not present at my birth. In fact, neither of them acknowledges me. I have plenty of siblings, but again, none of them care to know about me. I know what it is like to have a family who wish you weren't part of them, while they still think they can use you. You met Harlin. Well, he is my brother and all he wants from me is to make me a puppet. For him and his emperor." Hara snorted ungracefully. "Harlin is tame compared to my father. Trust me. When you meet him you will want to run in the opposite direction." Gideon smirked. "I bet I can win." She wasn't sure what he meant by that and she was too tired to get the answer out of him. Gideon sat on the bridge watching the scenery. Alice glanced around to make sure no one else approached him. She asked, "Hey, Gideon, is it true?" He glanced back at Hara's Alice. "What is true?" Alice twisted her hands in her grey smock. "That you are a dragon." He turned to look at her fully before he said, "And if I was a dragon, what would that mean?" Her hands were completely twisted up in her clothes now. "Nothing, it is just I have never met a dragon before." Gideon tilted his head to the side as he studied Alice. He asked curiously, "I have met many lately who have never met a dragon before. This is curious to me. When we first came to walk amongst you after the treaty, everyone seemed to recognize us. What has changed?" Alice shrugged and gave a guess. "Maybe it is because you don't eat us no more. I mean, people are always aware of things which are dangerous." Gideon flashed his teeth. If only it was that easy. Alice turned slightly to go back to her post but hesitated. She smoothed out the wrinkles in her skirt, then finally said, "Are you going to make Hara part of your collection? I've heard dragons like to collect women. And that is why we used to put out women to appease the dragons in the days before the treaty." Gideon shook his head. "That wasn't why you guys did that. We used to eat the women. But one was rather charming and told us stories, so we kept her. We started keeping the women because they were interesting. It was later we figured out we had a use for women other than entertainment. That is when we made the treaty." Alice shrugged. She wasn't blind to how men saw women, and it didn't surprise her that women were the preferred sacrifice. She asked, "But what about Hara?" Gideon smiled. "Oh, we are in negotiations. Alice laughed. I didn't know dragons negotiated with their collections. Gideon wiggled his eyebrows. Only the good ones. Hara couldn't sit down, so she paced. This had all been a complete mess. They had escaped the Roshbarkers and Talon was the only one injured. He sat with his arm tucked up against his chest. Alice had patched him up, but Hara felt more than just a little guilty. If she hadn't stuck her nose into Gideon's problems at the start of all this, they wouldn't have had to face the Roshbarkers. Hara stopped. I can take you guys anywhere you want to go. Alice frowned. But I like it here. You have given me responsibilities and you are teaching me things. In my old town, my dad always made me do woman's stuff. I'm not going anywhere. Hara looked at Liam. He flushed as he had been caught looking at Alice. Liam cleared his throat. I got nowhere to go. This place is as good as anywhere else. What he didn't say was he had a crush on Alice and would stick around. Hara sighed. She also understood that at his age there was a danger for him out on his own. Trouble would be chasing his heels just as it had in his hometown. Hara looked at her gunner, Murphy, and Henry. Henry shrugged. I'm still thinking about it. I like cooking. Doesn't really matter where. Murphy crossed his arms across his chest and then relaxed his bravado and admitted honestly. Man, Hara, you have some of the nicest guns out there. The men in the room all said, hey. Murphy's ears went red. I mean real guns. Get your minds out of the gutter, guys. If someone else can offer me better ordnance, then I might move on, but I like the guns, so I'll stick around. Hara turned to Talon. His eyes sparked. For now I'll stay. I'm waiting for some word about a score. When that comes in I'll move on, but till then I'll keep you company. His eyes went to Gideon and she knew he would stay to make sure she didn't get too close to Gideon. He really didn't have anything to worry about. Not that she didn't have feelings for the dragon, but because it had nothing to do with Talon. That was an issue she would settle another day. The others left to go to their work, but she stopped Talon. He sighed. Okay, I'll be honest, I don't trust that dragon and we are a good team. Talon went to leave again and she tightened her hand on his arm and said, that dragon has saved my life. I trust him more than I would trust my own father. Hara raised her eyebrows and added. Do you understand? You are not my father and you don't have to protect me. I have been looking after myself since my father realized I was useful and dragged me off to play darling for some minor court. Talon pursed his lips, then nodded his head sharply. I understand.